All right, Bulls and Bears. Hey, now it is Saturday, February 11th, 2023. I thought I would chime in today with a video. Got a few things to get caught up on, some more news. And tomorrow is Super Bowl Sunday, so I may not be putting out a report tomorrow. I'll have time, but I don't think a lot of people are going to be watching tomorrow, considering that it's Super Bowl Sunday. But if there's news worthy of bringing you a report, and if I have time, I'll do it. I'll put out a video tomorrow. But today, Bank of America is warning, or Bank of America is preparing for a U.S. debt default. Now, I've said here on this channel that I think the whole debt ceiling thing is a big nothing burger because they're always going to raise the debt ceiling. Why? Because the people that are responsible for implementing the increase in the debt ceiling, well, they're going to be held responsible if they don't increase it. And therefore, the economic carnage that's going to come from not increasing the debt ceiling is going to be put at the doorstep of those people. So I don't think anyone in their right mind, anyone that's holding office right now in the current administration, I don't think anyone in their right mind is going to vote not to raise the debt ceiling. And if they did, I think they would be committing career suicide for their own, for themselves. So I don't really see anyone putting themselves in harm's way like that. Also, if you remember a few years ago when we had a temporary shutdown because of the debt ceiling issue back then, there were certain federal employees that did not get paid. So that's another thing. Do you think anyone's really going to stop their own paychecks from being put in their checking accounts? All right, very unlikely, but hey, anything's possible. I never thought that the events of 2020 would unfold, but 2020 changed the world, and people are more open-minded now to unseen things happening or unexpected things happening. All right, but let's talk about what CEO of Bank of America said here, Brian Moynihan. Let me bring up the article. Recent article, Bank of America's Moynihan says firm is preparing for the U.S. debt to default. Lawmakers are locked in talks to lift the debt ceiling, with political opposition insisting on spending cuts before cutting a deal to raise the debt limit. And economists are warning of a financial crisis if a debt default does occur. Quote, we have to be prepared for that, not only in this country, but in other countries around the world. You hope it doesn't happen, but hope is not a strategy, so you prepare for it, unquote. That was a quote by Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan. And he continued, noting that the company is preparing as this would be a, quote, natural disaster. Now, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was out recently on a show called Good Morning America saying, quote, every responsible member of Congress should agree to raise the debt ceiling to avoid the catastrophe of a default. She continued, America has paid its bills on time since 1789, and not to do so would produce an economic and financial catastrophe, and every responsible member of Congress must agree to raise the debt ceiling. Doesn't it seem unusual? I almost don't want to use the word unusual because this has just been happening so long, just never ending increases in the debt ceiling. But doesn't it seem strange that we always have to have an unlimited debt ceiling, or there is no ceiling basically? So why even call it a debt ceiling if it's always going to be increased? But let me put it this way. Doesn't it seem concerning that without taking on endless amounts of debt, that there's going to be a catastrophe? And that's not my words. That's the words of Janet Yellen. That's the words of Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan. We're going to have a catastrophe, a disaster, what they're calling a natural disaster. All right. So think about it like this. If it was your household and the only way you could survive and avoid a catastrophe was have an unlimited credit card ceiling or unlimited credit card amount, credit line, credit limit, your life would turn into a catastrophe. Does that sound like a good place to be? Personally, no. But when it comes to federally or nationally, no one even really is concerned. No one thinks about it. No one is warning about it, except for now. At least Brian Moynihan, Bank of America, is preparing for it. So is there something different this time? Is it different this time? It's always difficult to say it's different this time because history repeats itself, but it's never the same. It actually is different this time. I mean, things are worse this time. The debt's higher. Interest rates have been raised much quicker than in previous downturns or previous attempts to fight off inflation. So it's different, but history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, right? I've heard that expression before. All right, so what do you guys think about this? Is Brian Moynihan just sounding the alarm for no reason, or is there something in the cards that we should all be prepared for with this debt ceiling issue? Please let me know what you think down in comments. All right, now let's move on here to some other news. Now, I've said here over the past few weeks, especially, that I can't really do a video without having some new layoff announcement to tell you about here. And today's Saturday. I didn't expect anything to come out today, but yes, there's more news. Another big round of layoffs is coming. Take a look at this. And it's another round of layoffs being announced out of Meta, the parent company for Facebook. Meta Platforms planning budget cuts and a new round of layoffs. Now, remember, it was just back in November, so just a few months ago, when Meta announced about 11,000 people being laid off, which was about 13% at that time, 13% of their workforce. All right, and we've seen this now repeatedly with different companies. Amazon had multiple rounds of layoffs, and I wouldn't be surprised to see even more layoffs now that we're done with the holiday season. And especially considering the state of most U.S. consumers being so heavily indebted and buried just under mountains of debt. And not just that, but the levels of debt increasing, and more people every month, every time we look at it, more and more people not making their full monthly payment or not paying off their credit card in full. That could only last so long, because the example we looked at earlier, nationally compared to you and me, just our household budgets, we don't have an unlimited credit card ceiling to keep raising and raising and raising, right? So we have to be careful, while the federal government doesn't have to be careful, because they have this unlimited debt ceiling, or unlimited credit card, if you want to call it that. Now, let's move on a little bit here. Some more economic news here. This has to do with jobs. And we know that companies, to increase their profits, like to have cheaper labor. So what do? They outsource jobs. They send jobs overseas to countries where the cost of living is much lower, and therefore where they can pay workers a much lower wage. Pretty simple, right? If you're a company, you want to pay people less and therefore increase your profits. So countries with a lower cost of living is also going to have lower labor costs, right? And that's another problem with having a high cost of living and inflation like we're seeing here in the US. But it's not just the US. A lot of countries are seeing massive inflation right now. But that is a problem when it comes to keeping jobs here at home. And what are we seeing here? We see more announcements of jobs being sent overseas. Let's take a look at one of the latest stories on this that I found for you. And this comes out of Penn Live. ShopVac announces layoffs, plans to move production from central Pennsylvania to China. China. Did I say that right? China. All right, let's take a look at how bad these jobs being lost is going to be. Let's see here. Great Star Tools USA, that owns ShopVac. Oh, look at this. They want me to subscribe. They want me to pay a fee just to read this story. Get out of here. I get a 7-day free pass. Should I do it just for this story? No, I don't think so. Let me see if I could find it somewhere else. Ha! There you go. All you have to do if you get asked to buy a subscription for a news story, just do a Google search and you'll find it somewhere else. Here we go. Ground news here. Let's go ahead and look at this one. All right, here we go. Well, that's weird. It's blank. Are they going to take us to that other? Yep, they're taking us to the other website. Never mind. Let me try a different one. Well, never mind, I guess, because I was going to show you guys how savvy I was on how to find news at other sites when they try to put your story behind a paywall. This one also wants us to go to Penn Live. Anyways, jobs are being lost. Outsourcing is happening. And until we get this under control, until we get the cost of living under control, inflation, you're always going to have companies motivated to take jobs out of this country into other countries. All right, folks, so another danger of the high cost of living. That's why we should really not like all these inflationary practices, these inflationary measures. And to do that, we need to pull back on the money printing. We need to raise interest rates even higher. Banks need to stop loaning out so much money. We need to put back the reserve requirements for banks. Right now, banks can loan out endless amounts of money because there's no reserve requirement. Therefore, the banks are insolvent. The banks actually don't have the money that they're loaning out, right? It's just digits on a screen, or debt notes, or debt digits, as some people call them, but it's not real money. That's why getting back the sound money is really the only, at the end of the day, the only real solution for this. That's why you see people like me and others out there saying get hard assets, gold, silver, especially silver, in my opinion, because this whole debt-based economy, this debt-based system, it's on numbered days, and we see a lot of countries around the world now going outside of the dollar. We see the dollar now declining when we look at the dollar index. And could this be the last decline before the big plunge and before the dollar is ultimately obsolete? I think we're headed that way. I'm not saying it's going to be tomorrow, but we all should stack and we all should prepare for things to get much worse, because I don't really see uh, I don't really see many solutions being discussed. So continue to prepare. It's not just me saying that. It's Brian Moynihan, Bank of America. He's saying he's preparing for a catastrophe. All right. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. And you may or may not see me tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. I'll probably have the game on as I'm doing things around the house. The Super Bowl, I'll have it on, but I don't really care who wins. And I'm not betting any money, right? I don't follow it that close to be able to know who to bet on. But hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Be safe out there. There's going to be more people on the road drinking and stuff like that. So be careful and be safe, folks. Hope everybody comes back to this channel for more news. We'll see you very soon. Keep stacking. Bye for now, and peace.